You're listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series.
Welcome to the studio, welcome to the microphone, Supreme Court Judge David Ashton Lewis.
Oh, thank you, Colin. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
That's good. Well, mate, you rang me up during the week and you said, I just need you to introduce me because you have a large gripe and you've got 25 minutes to get it out.
Now, that's not what I said. Now, for our lovely listeners, we all love Colin, but at times he does tend to either twist or exaggerate. It's an important topic, I think, and you're as much involved in it as I am. So introduce the topic, Colin.
Look, there was
you can't remember.
There was the extremes of left and right wing in the 20 minutes we had on the telephone.
I will do. It's looking at what the left produced, what the right produced, and certainly in the 20th century, and what the middle has produced. So let me start. The only good thing, well, not even good, but in terms of governance, I should say, the only thing the left ever produced in governance was a failure. It was taken up wholeheartedly by the Russians in 1917 and then in 1945 by beautiful cultures of Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania in Eastern Europe, particularly Hungary and Czechoslovakia and Poland. Well, it lasted from 1945 to 1990. And it was overthrown then because they were totalitarian one-party systems of governance that couldn't tolerate an opposition, but sadly delivered anything other than justice, equity, and fairness to those people.
Both extremes, though, David. Don't tolerate an opposition.
Well, thank you. I'll come to that in a minute. So, but we have today, why this has come up, and I'd like to speak on it, is because we now have young people in the Western world under the age of 40 starting to sing the praises of socialism and how good. You've got that mayor of New York, Mamdani, who's just said he's straight out, he's a socialist and probably a communist. Now, as I've said in the past, we've never had communist societies because communism is the later stage of socialism. But socialism never stayed around to become. So socialism is the government owns the means of production. And you, citizenry, you get all the benefits of that. But the benefits were shown in Russia and in Eastern Europe to be virtually not much in terms of people's freedom to think, to speak, to oppose. Things that we take for granted in parliamentary democracies. Now the same thing is on the right. We had the disgraceful Nazi period. We've had a Latin American and African right-wing juntas who are one-party states. They cannot tolerate any opposition, and both of their claims as they're building through a society, we offer you freedom, we offer you equity, we offer you justice. Well, it was shown in reality it didn't happen. Now we come to the middle, which is what Western Europe, the United Kingdom, Scandinavia, North America, Australia, New Zealand they are parliamentary or congressional democracies where the left of centre are usually called Labour parties or Democrats. The right of centre are usually called Conservatives or Liberals or what other else will be named. And we have those, but neither of them are extreme because the Labour Party in Western parliamentary societies has never advocated get rid of all other parties and we will run everything. Nope, never done it. Same with the right. Now, but what we've got is a movement in our societies. We've got Pauline Hanson and One Nation. Now, we've got young people who don't really have a good knowledge of history, saying she's a fascist, she's terrible. Well, that remains to be seen. I've never heard.
Seen a lot of young people singing her praises.
Oh,
because
yes,
they
yeah.
believe the current forms of government
But
have
look
left
what
us
happened.
in the mess we
Yeah,
currently
but
are.
when she appeared at a university, she couldn't speak because they just protested over her and everything. Now, that's not democracy.
No.
No, that is not, look, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. Now, the movement of the Democratic Party in the United States has just moved to an extreme of the left, and aspects of that party are praising the return to socialism. Now, I have confidence no one will ever vote in what we are is called centrist democracies. You're a little bit left, you're a little bit right. And that will never, ever be thrown out to let a little bit left become only party or a little bit right. So what in our societies, Pauline Hanson and One Nation or the Greens, I mean, how many people enjoy the language in the Senate of Maureen Faruqi or of Lydia Thorpe? I've had so many people complain. Well, my answer is, well, those women have been elected and they have a right
They do.
to it. And so good luck to them.
But we don't have to vote for them. That's
Exactly
the answer in
right.
a nutshell.
Yep, you're
we
right.
choose individually.
Yeah. Well, but in China today, the General Assembly of the People's Republic of China Communist Party, they put up candidates, and yes, you have to vote for them. But they're the only candidates.
Yes, that's right.
And so it's the same. Extreme right and left is appalling in terms of human rights, yet they sound so good when they're out of power. All you need to do is, if you followed history...
It's like if you follow the build-up of Nazi Germany,
Yes.
if you follow the build-up of what happened in the Russian Revolution,
Yes.
if you follow it is people who are disconcerted, who are very upset with the current status quo, and we're
Yes.
starting to build to that in this country.
I think you're right. And that's why there needs to be proper journalism, everyone saying, no, we are a centrist democracy. And while you might be a Labour voter or you might like Pauline Hanson, we must never move to a point where Hanson's arrested and her party disbanded, or Labour is, no, it's too socialist now. The whole strength of our centrist democracies are the ability to tolerate opposition and to have it. Whereas when you get to these extremes of right and left, they can't tolerate opposition. And as you've just touched on, the worrying thing, I can only speak for our societies, there does appear to be a growing falling in love with socialism again.
Look, I don't know whether people even recognise that's what it is, David.
Well,
because
yes,
if you look at, and again, I'm not picking sides here, if you look at what the rise of Trump in America,
Yes.
some would sit there and say that is, some argue with me, he's a benevolent dictator.
Yes.
Well, he's constrained by the Constitution. He's constrained by Congress. He has been voted in by the people. But I think the interesting point here is that the people were so disgruntled with the current system of stuck in the mud, bogged down, and we're not going anywhere or doing anything or solving any of the problems of the country. We're just doing the same old, old. Now, you can draw that parallel here. We knew in the 80s, when I was at uni, some of the lecturers we were talking to were saying, we've got a power crisis coming, we need to start making moves now. And lo and behold, we've done nothing right up to this point other than stick solar cells around the country and say batteries and solar and wind are going to solve the problem. If you listen to Ben Fordham, who's on here at 11 o'clock every day, New South Wales generated 7% of its power today off solar or wind. 7%.
So where did the other 93%
Correct.
come from?
So we still have the same problem that the government should be managing on our behalf.
Absolutely correct. And the trouble is when you move, well, you still have it in the centre, but when you move too far left and right, you become blinded to any other philosophy or policy than yours.
Yes.
And you start saying socialism will answer everything. Governments will own everything, means of production, banking and everything, and they will look after you.
Look, when I listen to my son's generation and
The generation dumb, I'm told that's
well,
called.
I'm not really sure of that.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of the coin, they do desperately despise what they see in
Yes.
question time or what they see in front of a camera where they really don't answer the question
No.
or provide anything of substance because, dear oh dear, we might get attacked on it. So they're disgruntled with that. And then they sit there and go, look at the level of debt we're about to inherit.
Mm-hmm.
Look at where the country is right now. If I look at what a house costs, how am I ever going to afford that in my
I know.
lifetime? Well, realistically, if the two governments who've just swapped over time
Yeah.
have got us to this point, what are we doing looking at
Well,
them?
that's why.
How about we look at
Yeah.
someone else?
There
And that's what I'm
needs to-
hearing.
There needs to be renewal.
Yes.
There needs to be renewal of focus, of commitment, and you're not getting it from our old liberal national coalition. You're not getting it from Labor. So what happens when that? You then spring up these, well, I wouldn't say ratbag elements, but the Greens will never govern the country in their own right. And so how do people get elected? I have never heard Lydia Thorpe address anything other than arrogant right-wing bashing. I've never heard her speak on policy, yet she is in the Australian Senate.
If you look at the bedrock principles behind the Green Party or where it started,
Yeah.
you've got to
In
say
Germany.
you've got to sit there and say that they're an extremist as well.
Of course.
The environment over everything else. Well, hang on.
Yeah.
This is about us.
Well, okay, stop there. So when we get to the stage, you spoke of Nathan, he's 21. When we get to the stage where that generation say, all of you have not served us well. You did in the past, but it's time for change. Now that, I understand, is what's driving the call that puts a Mamdani into the biggest it's as big as a country,
Sure.
New York, and yet he's avowed, he said it, I'm a socialist. And he's trying to introduce government grocery stores. Right, for a right reason, because the poor can't buy on their social security checks. But I understand they're coming into difficulty. Why? Because they breach aspects of what they're doing of the United States Constitution. Now, the only way you can do what a lot of these people want to do is amend the Constitution. Now, you've got 50 other states who'll say, no, we're not going to agree to that. So definitely, I think you're right. There is a need for new politics, new politicians, new reform, because, again, every time I listen to a senator or a member of the House of Representatives, it's just boringly one-sided political policy. Now, I heard one to...
Yeah, I was going to say also the level of journalism in this country has got us to a point where we're just tagging onto the punchlines.
Yep,
Because,
yep.
you'll hear, we've got to stop immigration. Well, hang on.
Why?
The subject itself is much larger than that.
It sure is.
Who's going to sit there and pick all of our fruit and vegetables if we stop it? Now,
Well,
stop it is an absolute,
Yeah,
right?
but the main thing is you'll say, so therefore, all you unemployed Australians who are here in Melbourne said, but I don't want to go to the country. Well, you might have to. But if something comes in and says, we're moving you to the country, that's called socialism, or it's called nationalism.
Correct.
On the right and the left. One of the great things of Western parliamentary democracy is freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of association. So freedom to say, I don't want to go and live in the country. So when do we get to the point with a government saying, unfortunately, you're going to have to? Now, we're seeing the start of it. I heard the minister, Mark Butler, speak this morning on what's happening with the NDIS. He spoke beautifully, and he just said, the NDIS has grown to the point that it's unsustainable. And we're now handing some things on to states. And he was asked what? And he said, well, naturally, a grossly incapable person, they should be on the NDIS. But someone who has mild autism, they shouldn't be on it.
I'm mildly autistic.
Are you?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you're not.
But again, look,
lots
lots of people suffer from, and it's a spectrum, right? ADHD, autism to a point.
Yes.
I have a very analytical mind. It is very organised. It's great at problem solving.
Yes.
And that is the start of autism.
Well, yes, it is. But I've been told I have Asperger's, or the start of Asperger's, because of my way of approaching life. Now, that may be true. We all will have this. I mean, Ollie's sitting there suffering from autism and Asperger's, and I'm being unfair. No, the thing is, though, and this I take it back to when Julia Gillard, it's correct, an NDIS, but the problem was we didn't have the money. And they thought the money was going to come from the super profits tax, which didn't emerge. So we got caught in this trap of people abusing the system. So at least I praise Mark Butler. They've had a massive review over the last 2 years, and they're handing certain things to the states. And I was interested to hear him say the states have agreed.
Look, my biggest concern is, and again I'll mention responsible journalism, because you'll see things like, and I watched, I think it was the ABC the other night, where they had Jenny McAllister on, who is in charge of the NDIS at the moment.
Oh, yes.
And they were just hammering her. So there's going to be people who have had benefits who potentially are not going to have benefits. And she said, look, we're going to be looking at everyone, and there will be opportunities.
So they don't answer the question, do they?
It's not really the answering of the question. The issue is that there will be people who don't deserve those benefits. And prior to Julia Gillard putting this together, they didn't get any anyway.
No, and that was put to Mark Butler. And I credit him. He just said, yes, there'll be some because they're too light in national disability. And so that's got to be handled by states. States have agreed, and we will fund the states, but here was the point. We'll give 50%. So the question didn't come back. So you're still going to be covering 50% of mild autism and whatever.
I think the bigger issue here, David, is, and we're going to degrade into this thing, it is a very big issue.
It is.
But when they're starting to say that the NDIS is costing more than Medicare, and we are very close to that.
I think it is.
Medicare is predominantly everybody.
Yep.
And it looks after all of us for those drugs that we can't afford. It is absolutely perfect. But when you look at the number of the people that Medicare affects and the number that NDIS covers, you're sitting there going, hang on a minute, it is a desperately disproportionate number of people.
Well, I'm going to cut... Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
Then we just need to start looking at the system itself, because, because of the connection with our volunteers here and the demographic, we hear a lot of the harshness or the hard stories.
Yes.
Where an $80,000 wheelchair that helps someone get around because it's robotic and so forth, the person passes away, they ring the NDIS supplier and says, what do we do with this wheelchair? And they said, put it in the bin, we'll sell another one to the next person.
Well, now,
that is the problem with the system.
Well, if that's true, you would agree with anyone saying that is irresponsible.
Sure.
That chair was bought for a proper purpose, and it was worth $80,000. Then the government or NDIS, you need to develop a system that can deal with second-hand ones.
Sure.
Now, look, NDIS was perfect. We are a civilized society. We are compassionate, and we accept that parents or whatever can't carry all the burden, so they should be helped. And the taxpayer, it can, I think, rightly be expected to contribute. But like all of these things with human nature, they get out of hand. And so NDIS has gotten out of hand. But I do commend Mark Butler from the way he spoke this morning. Again, just on that. So there will be some people who won't get anything. Yes, he said, yes, because NDIS was never designed for that.
Look, and I've seen it in places where the NDIS money should have been spent on education, and it's been spent on iPads to help the child mind. Now, again, it just comes down to responsible use of the monies that are being allocated to you, and that just requires more governance. If it's going to end up being the government money that needs to help out.
So let us go back to what we started on. What is the gift of socialism, or the legacy of socialism in governance of a society? It's failed. What is the legacy of nationalism? In other words, right wing. It's failed. What is the legacy of stumbling, bumbling, centrist democracies like the Western European countries, Australia? Well, it hasn't failed, but it's stumbling and it needs reform. And my response is to young people or older people, I know we've got a couple of really strong socialists listening to this, so I expect we'll see. But my answer is not what you want. That's not going to fix things, because the sacrifices that one has to put up with in a one-party state are not to be tolerated. Now, the sacrifices one has to put up with in a right-wing Nazi-type state it cannot be tolerated. Now, the reason why China is still a one-party state, when did they ever have, prior to 1949, when Mao Zedong finally took power, when did they ever have free democratic elections? It was either Chiang Kai-shek, who had to flee to Taiwan. And so don't look at extremes. I would encourage anyone. You might love socialism, but don't look at it as a system that will repair the problems that we all can rightly see in our democratic parliamentary or congressional governments. And right-wing, now I don't mean this disrespectfully to Pauline Hanson, but 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4, cannot solve everything.
No.
There has to be flexibility. Where we've gotten into trouble in the West is flexibility has been extorted, been abused, and is currently not working.
Look, we can't be afraid to make some harsh decisions, some unpopular decisions in the public, the best or the majority's interest, because that's exactly who and what we are. Where the government of the day is meant to govern the country or the state on behalf of all of us, and hence why we vote. If we don't like what they're doing, we vote them out and we put the next lot in.
And they go out. Whereas what chance is there for the Chinese or the Vietnamese or anyone to say, we're sick of the Vietnamese Communist Party running us, or China, we want to try something different? Well, you won't even survive the knock on the door in the evening when 4 or 5 grey-suited men say, please come with us.
All right, final statements, David?
Well, I think that the gift of socialism in governance has failed. The gift of nationalism, and I include Nazis in that, has failed. The gift of our centrist democracies has given us what we've got today. Look around Australia, has given us, things that we should, as a civilised people, address, and one of them is the National Disability Insurance Scheme. But the nature of man is keep taking a bit more. So we really, as you have spoken many times, I don't want to change our system of right and left of centre, but I want there to be a growth in responsibility, a growth in working together at times, rather than party policy. So that's really what I'm speaking about today.
David Ashton-Lewis, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Colin.
You've been listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series. Support local online content and become a financial supporter today at 4crb.com.